Welcome back to Two Crime Besties. Today we are launching part 2 of our OJ Simpson case. So if you haven't listened to part 1, please go back and do so now. We decided to split it into 2 because it was a really long episode. There was so much to cover, and I think a 2-hour-long episode was probably just a little more than most of us can handle. So enjoy part 2 and what's coming up. But we thought we'd do a little intro into the week anyway. And what have you been up to, Meg? What's been happening?
This week's been another crazy week, of course, in running children around. How about you? Although actually, having said that, it has been a better week. I just realised we're going into a week of weekend where we've got the long weekend and there's less sport.
Yeah.
And I have really actually relished that little bit more time.
Same here. So we're coming into the King's birthday long weekend at this recording, and we are, a lot of the sports have been paused for the week. We don't have anything for the weekend. It's a really nice place to be. Kind of gives you a bit of a glimpse of what October's going to look like.
Yeah,
and we're recording this in June.
Yeah, when the winter sports end, because that just seems like the absolute chaos for us. I feel like it's going to be, halved once we get past winter sports. So,
for sure.
Yeah, really looking forward to that because this has been quite glorious having that extra time to just. And it's weird because going into the weekend now, I feel actually super prepared. I've actually had a load of washing, done, literally finished for the week, whereas normally I'm getting into the start of the weekend with a load that's been half done or something. So already on top of things. Love that.
You go, girl. Yeah. Love that. I feel exactly the same way. My kids are going camping with my husband this weekend, so I have some time to myself. I'm so excited.
Glorious.
Doesn't happen very often.
I love that. I've just been watching you get together with Peter, getting organised for them to go camping, and the whole idea of that, Dad's taking you away for the weekend and you get the weekend to yourself. That is great. But I mean, let's be honest, who actually does all the work to get them to get out the door?
That's a really good question. So we let the boys pick a couple of things from the supermarket, like special treats to take away. So I facilitated that and then put the order through. I picked up the order, brought it home, unpacked it all. Peter has packed a few bits and bobs that they're going to need for the weekend. But then, as you just saw, I had to double check and make sure all of the clothes were packed properly. So
do they have warm enough clothing to go camping in June?
And they're going, near the snow.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sure they'll be fine. It'll be right.
He's totally capable of taking them. It's just it's the organisation of getting them, isn't it? That it's so the female role of
really
getting organised.
It really is. But you know what? I'm happy to do it because it means I get 2 nights to myself. And then I know it'll be chaos when they come back because there'll be so much washing and
his job,
smelly campfire stuff. But yeah, that's right. Everything, the laundry will be clear for him to do what he needs to do.
I love it.
All right, should we get into the case for the week? So we're going to pick up, I think the episode now picks up with getting to the crime scene and the evidence. So enjoy it, and we'll see you all next week.
Yes, for another episode. Excellent.
Yay.
Thanks, my besties. Enjoy. So at the scene, there's lots and lots of evidence that was found. So
this is for me, this is where you cannot try and convince me that in fact, it's not even convincing. It's like evidence is evidence. There's no two ways about it. And there's no opinion on this. There is fact. And that's it.
I want you to go to town on this because you're the scientist.
Well, I mean, there's so much evidence that, there's so much there. The thing that gets me, I'm just going to go into that bit first and then we can come back to everything else they found at the crime scene.
Yeah.
The blood on the Bronco.
Yeah.
So I wrote it down. It is a 1 in 9.7 billion chance that it on the tailgate of the Bronco is OJ's blood, Nicole's blood, and Ron's blood.
Where else would he have come?
And where did they find the Bronco? Parked down the side of, the side street of OJ's house.
Yeah.
So this is what we think's happened, right? OJ has killed Nicole, killed Ron. He had to get back for a flight to Chicago, which was leaving. I think the limo was supposed to come at 11. The limo driver arrived 10 to 11 at his house, knocked on the door. There was no
multiple times he knocked on the door and no answer.
No
so
answer.
It's basically like was the key evidence at the trial, like saying like, he wasn't there.
He wasn't there. He called his boss to say, oh, it's not answering. His boss is like, oh, OJ's always late. Just wait 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
With that, the limo driver saw a black figure walking across the yard.
Mm-hmm.
And then, lo and behold, 15 minutes later, OJ answers the door. And he's like, oh, sorry, I was in the shower.
Bullshit. Or in the shower, blood.
Oh, fucking oath. Like, bullshit.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Bullshit.
He gets in the car, or gets in the limo, goes off to the airport and flies to Chicago.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously, the police have attended the scene at Gretna Green, which is where Nicole's house was.
Yep.
And they're like, well, oh, by the way, we haven't even mentioned this. The 2 children were asleep upstairs.
Oh, yeah. Just horrific. I mean, they could have found it. Thank God the neighbours found it and not the children. You cannot have that.
You cannot even. And thankfully, they never saw anything. The police were able to get them out without them seeing the most horrific scene. Oh my God, you can't even. And the fact that OJ left his kids there after he's murdered them, oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, do you know what though? There is a particular guy who was looking into this case in depthly, and his name has absolutely left my brain. But he was quite major in the trial and everything in terms of his opinions on these things. He made the comment out loud, he said this, that it couldn't have been OJ because no one would do that to their partner with their children in the house.
It happens all, like, what?
It's like
OJ had bashed the shit out of her at home with the kids there.
The man would do that with his children at home.
Oh, fuck off.
We need to all live in a society that's the case, 100%. But I'm sorry, what utter bullshit.
Anyway.
Oh,
my God. Yeah. So then the LAPD are like, well, we need to notify next of kin. And unfortunately, at that time, next of kin was OJ.
Oh, and not only that, I mean, they were wanting the father to, be able to come and get his kids too. They're thinking nicely around the situation of like, well, the kids will want their dad right now.
And so they actually got one of the police officers who was kind of a bit friendly with OJ from the LAPD to go with another officer to go and notify him. And they knocked on the gate, or like buzzed at the gate, and there was no answer because by this stage OJ was either in Chicago or on his way to Chicago. Mm-hmm. And this particular police officer was like, oh, there's a gate down the side. So he's walked around. The house must be on a corner. Yep. So he's walked around the other side to the side gate, and he's seen the white Bronco there. And he's seen blood. The blood smear. So it wasn't even just microscopic. It was a significant, enough that the police officer's like, well, there's blood here. Mm. He then took that as enough evidence that there may have been someone injured inside the house or inside the fact that this wasn't
actually
murder, suicide, or
OJ. And actually he was the target or something. So they needed to make sure
because the white Bronco didn't belong to OJ either.
Yeah, it did.
Did it?
There's 2 white Broncos. Did you know that?
No.
Okay, there's 2 white Broncos. Yeah.
Oh my God, we're going to... What?
Did you? Okay. Yeah, no, there's 2 white Broncos. So there's OJ's white Bronco. Now, because it was found with blood on it, that was taken to the depot where they go look at like forensics for the car. So the white Bronco that was on the freeway, which we'll get to, was not his white Bronco. That was
whatever his name is.
His ex teammate.
Yeah.
His white Bronco. They just happened to both drive white Broncos.
How did I not know that? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Which, just as an aside, he then drove that white Bronco to the funeral. Anyway, sorry, that's a story for another. That's a story for later. God, this is. Oh my God, there's so much. So the police officers jumped the fence to go in and do essentially what would be, a welfare check, I suppose, on OJ.
Yeah.
knock on the main house. There's no one answering the door of the main house. So he goes to the guest house. And in the guest house was a very interesting character in this story, Cato Kalin.
I love him.
Like he just seems to be, he's like,
I feel sorry for him
all the time.
I feel sorry for him though in this whole situation because he was really wanting to be an actor, and there's no way he's like being typecast now and just cannot.
He wouldn't
he could have a career after.
I mean, he's infamous.
Yeah,
but
for one thing only.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that he ever would have really made it because you hear him talk and you're like, oh, dude, get yourself together. So the police then knock on the guest house door and he answers and they're like, oh, have you heard anything, or when did you last see OJ? Where is he? And he's like, oh, last saw OJ, they'd gone to McDonald's for dinner that night and they got home at about 9:30. He then went and retired to his guest house. So the last time he saw OJ was at 9:30, and then the next sighting of OJ was at 11-ish, 11:15, went by the limo driver. So he's got an hour and 45 odd minutes in there where no one knows where he was.
And it was certainly close enough to to Nicole's to have been there and back again.
It was only a few minutes.
Yeah.
So the police officer's like, oh, right, anything unusual happened? And he's like, oh, I did hear 3 really loud thuds on the side of the wall. I thought it was, 3 really loud thuds. He thought, it might have been an earthquake in his drugged out stupor. So the police officer's like, oh, I better go and check around the house and see if there's anything there. And what did he find? He found a glove, the matching glove. Oh, this glove was also covered in blood, so now that means Rockingham's a crime scene. The glove matched the same glove that was found at the crime scene at Gretna Green at Nicole's house.
Yeah. And in the trial, there was attempts at claiming that the cops planted that glove at Rockingham.
Yep.
However, there are crime scene photos of Nicole's place taken prior to them going to Rockingham, where there is only one glove.
Yes.
The officers, there is no officer has come forward and said there were 2 gloves there. There was only ever one glove.
Yeah.
So let's just get rid of that.
Let's get rid of that. That's absolute bullshit. Yeah. They did not plant the glove. No. They found the second glove. Why he would bloody leave it there, I don't know.
Why do you do anything?
Yeah. Anyway, on that glove, they found blood belonging to Nicole and Ron. And they found fibers from the Bronco in the glove, which apparently the fibers from the seat in the Broncos were a particular type of fiber that was only found in those Broncos that were made in that year or those couple of years. The evidence just, it mounts up and up and up and up and up.
Continued to put basically, not plant, I shouldn't use that word. It continued to put OJ at Nicole's house, back at Rockingham.
Yep.
It links it all up. You cannot tell me that he was not at that crime scene. There's nothing. And I loved the way one guy put it, because apparently, there's lots of claims within the trial there of that, the police were planting things and, and that they were trying to frame OJ. But at the end of the day, this scientist guy said, and you can back up or defend this or whatever, that he said, look, literally, yes, there was some inconsistencies in the way that the evidence was treated. There was some stuff-ups, definitely.
Yeah.
However, you could literally have tipped over a truck in that middle of that crime scene and still the fact would remain that Ron Goldman's blood was found in the Bronco. OJ's blood was found on the path leading out on that gate. The gate.
I think there were how many?
Many things where the DNA matched up.
So I think there were 108 different blood spatters along at Nicole's house.
Yeah.
That matched OJ.
Yeah.
108.
So
of that 108, the defense were disputing 2 of them because they said that the police had planted that blood because it contained EDTA. So EDTA is an anticoagulant. If you've ever had a blood test in Australia, I'm sure it's the same in America, they use a purple tube and it means that your blood doesn't clot. And it's for certain tests that need to be done. They're claiming that because they found EDTA in the blood in 2 spots out of the 108, that the police must have planted it all.
It must have been the blood that they drew from OJ to test whether it was his or not. Yeah.
In a blood sample, fresh blood sample that's taken from you or me, there will be EDTA in it.
Yeah.
And later on, once further forensic analysis was done many, many years later, they found that the levels of EDTA in the blood was actually just normal, a normal level.
Yep.
But I think they just didn't know that at the time of the trial, although like it matters because it's 2 out of 108. So what happened in the other 106 spots?
This is the thing.
I mean, they just focused on those 2 and did their little show and dance and magic, and no one cared about the 106. They just cared about the 2.
Yeah, that's right. This is what this guy was saying. It was like, you could literally have tipped a whole truckload of stuff over this stuff. It doesn't stop. You can then, yes, you compromise the scene, but at the end of the day, that DNA was there.
It was there.
It's going to be there regardless of what else they added to the scene.
Yeah.
It was still there. Yeah. So, oh man. I mean, a lot of this comes down to the fact that DNA evidence was fairly new at this time, and definitely the jury then did not have an understanding of DNA. Apparently they spent like 8 weeks in the trial focusing just on like the DNA evidence, which just blows my mind then that people can't have
how
gone.
Exhausting. But I mean, I think the jury absolutely, they should be ashamed of themselves for acquitting him.
Yeah.
They clearly wanted to believe something. And I mean, I think you've probably got a lot more about this, but you know, the fact that you can interview jurors after the fact in the States, you know, it's very telling.
There's been lots of comments after the fact, you know, from jurors around, you know, that that was their way. It was their jurors' way of getting revenge.
Yep.
You know, for other crimes of police officers.
Yeah. I mean, there was, I guess there was an incident that happened not long before the murders where the LAPD were videoed on an old school camcorder kind of video by somebody standing by watching the LAPD basically like beat the absolute living daylights out of an African American man who just had a traffic violation. Like it wasn't anything bad. I've watched the video. It is horrible.
And look, they've known. I mean, they're pretty much the worst, most racist police force, you know, within the world. The LAPD are not good, and still to this day, I don't think they've really been able to make huge leaps and bounds, and where, you know, so there's still issues. But there was much of this case then revolved more around that than around the fact that Nicole Brown Simpson had been murdered, as well as Ron Goldman. It became more of a race
political
issue.
And race issue.
Yeah. Which
really
is just really, it's so sad that's, I mean, for, you know, OJ picked the perfect time to murder his wife, put it that way, because that was able to be spun, and that's all it was. It was spin. I mean, you put together the his dream team of his lawyers. I can give you the list of who was on his dream team. So the dream team consisted of Robert Shapiro, Johnny Cochran, Carl Douglas, Sean Chapman Holly, Jared Yellman, Robert Kardashian, Alan I'll get it right in a minute, Deschewitz, F. Lee Bailey, Barry Shack, Peter Neufeld, Robert Blaster, William Thompson. And that alone, I mean, how much they cost?
I read somewhere it was
$5 million.
I thought it was like something like, oh yeah, I think you're right. I think his cost about $5 million. The defense case cost about $9 million.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
God.
The prosecution cost $9 million. Yeah.
Yeah. They used their situation to their benefit. I mean, look, I don't think that the prosecution did a great job either. They made mistakes. I think in a lot of ways they thought it was such a slam dunk case.
Oh,
they did have the evidence they had. There's many, many, many other cases that have been easily won with far less evidence.
Yeah.
So I think they unfortunately sat back on their laurels a little bit and made some pretty rookie errors against incredible lawyers. I mean, anyone would want one of these guys representing them if they'd done something or not done it.
Robert Kardashian, who had absolutely no idea what he was really doing.
As I said to you, Robert Kardashian was a bit like, getting your conveyancer to do your family law court situation.
Yeah, that's it. Why was he even there? Well, didn't he so at one point they took the jurors to the house, and this was at the insistence of the defense.
No, it was the
prosecution. Sorry.
Because they originally, what happened was, Marsha wanted them to go to the scene, to Nicole Brown's house
at night,
and wanted them to see it, to understand how it would have felt to have been there, which is a lot of trials. Apparently, that's done a fair bit.
Mm-hmm.
So she put that forward, and it somehow flipped around on her. Unfortunately, the defense then flipped this and said, "Well, if we're going to Nicole's house, then we need to go to OJ's house."
And so, what did the defense team do at OJ's house?
Oh my God! They did a freaking tour of his house. They needed to look at where the Bronco was parked, where the glove was found, Cato's little condo. That's it.
Yeah.
Nope, there was a grand tour.
They also put up pictures of prominent black people.
Mm-hmm. All the white guys took all off the walls.
All the white guys were off the walls, and all the good black people were back on the walls.
Yeah.
And didn't they? They took them to his trophy room and let them hold things.
Yep.
And
one of the jurors actually even wore whatever team he was from.
Yeah, like the winning jersey or something.
He was kicked off the jury, but it's questionable whether he was kicked off for that reason or not.
Yeah.
But people took this as just being like a celebrity, tour. It wasn't we're on a trial for this murder of these two innocent people.
Which obviously, it must have endeared him to them because of
I'm sorry, but how does it endear you when you go to his house and you find that he has a full life-size statue of himself in his yard? What the fuck? Who was this guy?
Well, he was an absolute narcissist. He was just so full of himself.
Yeah.
He probably couldn't imagine who else he'd potentially have a statue of. Like, who else would there be? He didn't have a statue.
Oh my God. He was just, well, let's get into narcissist. Do you want me to read his suicide?
Oh, please.
Note? I put that in inverted commas for those that can't see me. It's a suicide note.
Now, Meg has done so much work to find this, because if you look online and try and find this note, you can see little snippets of it, but I actually couldn't find the whole thing put together. Meg has found it.
Hunted hard and found it. So it's a little bit hard to read at times because his spelling is fucking atrocious. And as a previous
coming from a teacher.
And the other thing is I've got to try and get through it without putting my opinion across. So I'm just going to read. Okay, I'll try. Okay. So this was written on the 15th of June, 1994, 2 days prior to his Bronco run. Okay, just keep that in mind. To whom it may concern. First, everyone, understand nothing to do with Nicole's murder. I loved her. All, 2 L's, always have and always will. If we had a problem, it's because...
You don't have to read it phonetically.
Maybe I do. It's because I loved her so much. Recitally, we came to the understanding that for now weren't right for each other, at least for now. Despite our love, we were different, and that's why we mutually agreed to go our separate ways.
Have you seen those? Separate.
Oh God. It was tough spitting for a second time, but we both knew it was for the best. Assuming that says splitting. Inside, I have had no doubt that in the future we would be close as friend or more, unlike what's been in the press. Nicole plus I had a great relationship for most our lives together. Like all long-term relationships, we had a few downs plus ups. I took the heat New Year's 1989 because that's what I was supposed to do. I did not plea no contest for any other reason but to protect our privacy and was advice it would end the press hype. Don't get me started. I don't want to belabor knocking the press, but I can't believe what's being said. Most of it totally made up. I know you have a job to do, but as a last wish, please, please, please leave my children in peace. Their lives will be tough enough. I want to send my love thanks to all my friend. I'm sorry I can't name every one of you, especially AC, man. Thanks for being in my life. The support and friendship I receive from so many. Wayne Hughes, Louis Marks, Frank Olsen, Mark Packer, Bender, Bobby Kardashian. I wish we had spent more time together and recite years. My golfing buddy, Hoss, Alan Austin, Mike, Craig, Bender, Weiler, Sandy, Jay, Donny, Sofa, thank you for the fun. All my teammate over the years. Reggie, you were the soul of my pro career. Ahmad, I never stopped being proud of you. Marcus, you got a great lady in Catherine. Don't mess it up. Bobby Chandler, thanks for always being there. Skip and Kathy, I love you guys. Without you, I never would have made it this far. Marguerite, thanks for those early years. We had some fun. Paula, what can I say? You are special. I'm sorry we're not going to have our chance. God brought you to me. I now see. As I leave, you'll be in my thoughts. I think of my life and feel I've done most of the right things. So why do I end up like this? I can't go on. No matter what the outcome, people will look and point. I can't take that. I can't subject my children to that. This way they can move on and go on with their lives. Please, if I've done anything worthwhile in my life, let my kids live in peace from you, the press. I've had a good life. I'm proud of how I lived. My mama taught me to do unto other. I treated people the way I wanted to be treated. I've always tried to be up plus helpful. So why is this happening? I'm sorry for the Goldman family. I know how much it hurts. Nicole and I had a good life together. All this press talk about a rocky relationship was no more than whatever long-term relationships experience. All her friends will confirm that. I've been totally loving and understanding of what she's been going through. At times I've felt like a battered husband or boyfriend, but I loved her. Made that clear to everyone and would take whatever to make us work. Don't feel sorry for me. I've had a great life, made great friends. Please think of the real OJ and not this lost person. Thanks for making my life special. I hope I help yours. Peace and love, OJ, with a smiley face inside the O.
Ugh.
What the fuck?
It sounds like an Oscars acceptance speech.
Thank you. This is not a suicide note. Where's the, like, this is tragic about my wife dying and my kids being left now without a mother. And if it is a suicide note, now they're left without a father. There's no, just,
no, it was
battered husband.
Yeah.
Are you for real?
What a piece of shit.
He's so gross. So gross. And that letter just confirms the narcissistic traits that he had.
Absolutely.
But the battered one, there is absolute evidence to prove he has been the wife beater.
Yeah. At least 8 reports, which, according to the LAPD, should amount to a felony charge.
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
The whole letter, it just gets me. But the simple fact of the matter is that was written 2 days before his Bronco chase. Yet Robert Kardashian got up that day that he was in the Bronco and read that note, although he didn't read it word for word like I just did. He read it and made it sound a lot nicer. He read it going, oh, my poor friend, his mental state, that guy was never going to kill himself.
Oh, God, no.
God, no. Never. That was never his plan. It was his plan to make people think that's maybe what he would do.
For sure.
But he was never going to kill himself.
No.
Oh, no.
Hard agree.
No.
Couldn't kill the juice.
No. The world needs him. All of
he's God's gift.
His list of all of his bloody buddies. Oh, it just makes my skin crawl.
No.
No.
Oh, you got a good one there. Oh my God. Like he's,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, the little, I mean, if this was a suicide note, no mention of his kids, really in terms of like, that I love you or, that I want the best for you. It was all about, the press and leave my kids alone. Like,
Yeah, because he's the hero.
Not because none of the "I love you" like that sort of stuff.
Yep.
And even the first wife she got like one tiny little line.
And why get Robert Kardashian to read it to the press? I'm sorry.
I think genuinely, I don't think he's that smartest tool in the shed. I don't know. I get the vibe that maybe he genuinely thought that OJ's mental state wasn't good. I actually think
I agree. And I mean, a lot of this I get from the way I can't help but think the way that David Schwimmer acted as him, because he just seems so pathetic. And so my impression then of that is that he really genuinely did think that he was doing the right thing and that he was really actually helping his friend.
Yep.
But I mean, along the lines of the Kardashians, like our mate Chris, she's since come out, because she and Nicole were really good friends.
Like best friends.
Besties.
Yeah, I mean, the whole trial, she sat on one side.
Yeah.
While Robert was obviously on Kardashian's, on OJ's bench, like, for the trial.
So she obviously, saw the evidence for what it was, as any reasonable person would. And who's more reasonable than Kris Jenner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like Robert Kardashian, even after the trial, though, came out and said,
Bobby Kardashian.
Sorry, Bobby. He came out after the trial, and there was an interview with Barbara Walters.
Yep.
And he said on them he believed that OJ did it.
Yeah. That was well after the trial, though, wasn't it?
Yeah. But the thing was, what that dream team, the reason that was such a big team was actually because these are incredibly prominent lawyers, right?
Mm.
They would come out in the press and say, he clearly did this. So then they would go after them and bring them on their team, because once they were part of the inner sanctum, they then can't speak out, right? So they were basically just paying them to keep quiet.
Yeah.
So that they weren't out in the press making statements of like, of course he did this. This is why, then legal jargon of like how they can prove this.
Yep.
They were keeping them on the team and paying them. And I really feel that was a little bit of Robert Kardashian in the end, because there's video footage of when OJ Simpson was arrested, and he arrived at the house and got out of the car and handed a bag to, first of all, I think it was his secretary.
Yes.
It was a garment bag. Now, that garment bag, the cops knew about the garment bag, but then it was just never found.
Yep.
But there's video footage of him getting out of the car with his garment bag and it being handed to the secretary.
Yep.
To which then the secretary and Robert Kardashian then come together and they're like consoling each other. But they're not really. They're talking and whispering and obviously passing on information. And this garment bag floats around until, all of a sudden, Robert Kardashian's leaving the scene with the garment bag.
Yep.
Now, this garment bag went to Chicago.
Yep.
With OJ.
Yep.
So there is belief that inside that bag would have been some pretty, if nothing else, clothing he wore on the day.
Well, yeah, that's where they believe all the evidence was from the night.
And most likely the weapon was in that bag.
Yeah.
But let's even just say that even the fact of like trying to like get him to, for some evidence to be found that he wasn't involved, the clothes he was wearing on that day would be handy to test.
Yep.
So even if it just had clothes in it and they wanted to test that, but that bag disappeared.
Yep.
And Robert Kardashian knows where that bag went.
Yep.
So
and went to, like, has since passed, and it's not like he had a deathbed confession of sort of knowledge to any of these facts.
Yeah. Well, that's probably, he didn't probably want to get Chloe's dad in trouble, like,
Oh my God! Now get into that just real quick.
So OJ Simpson is Khloe Kardashian's real dad, don't we think?
Well, now that you mention it, again, should we maybe put a link to some photos for people? Because it seemed like you showed me a photo of Sydney, who's OJ and Nicole's daughter, side by side with Khloe pre any.
You've got to go weight loss, pre-surgery.
Yeah.
Because obviously,
I mean, they don't
job
but they also don't look like themselves anymore. None of them do.
No.
Yeah, back in her sort of late teens, early 20s.
Even like as little children, the two of them look quite similar. Yeah. Yeah. Was a picture I found of Chloe.
Yeah.
Yeah, she would have been probably like 5.
Okay.
And then I've sat around the same age when there was one of Sydney, and it's, yeah.
Chris,
very
you dirty
similar.
dog.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the thing. So that's how close they were. Like OJ and Bob Kardashian were friends from their college days.
Yeah.
So they'd known each other like Bob meeting Chris, you know, that sort of stuff. That that they were part of each other's lives for a long time. It was, I mean, known that Kris Jenner did have an affair. She's admitted to having affairs. She's never admitted.
Very good read if you're up for it.
Yeah, she's never admitted to having an affair with OJ and has denied it. But
I mean, if you look at it, Chloe just is the black sheep of that family.
I love Chloe. She's actually my favorite.
Same. She's my favorite too.
But I do think she's. I mean, I think knowing now who OJ is as a person, would I want to pursue the fact of like the possibility of him being my father? No way.
No way. And if I were Chris, I would never be admitting to that.
No, and it sounds like, you know, that Robert Kardashian was an amazing father.
Yeah.
So from all, you know, all the Kardashian episodes I've watched.
Same. You know, there's no evidence to the contrary. We know them very, very well. So that beautiful parasocial relationship we have with them. We know them.
Yeah, so just side note.
I do love a good side note.
Oh my God.
So at the trial, I think the prosecution team led by Marsha Cross, I find her absolutely fascinating. And you were saying before they made some mistakes, and they absolutely did. But I still think on the balance of everything, they did a really good job. And she's a mum.
Yep.
She had so much going on in her life, and to have this case, which was on TV every single day, like broadcast live. Oh, that was the other thing. Oh, we need to talk about the Bronco chase.
Oh, God, yeah. Yep.
You do the Bronco chase.
No, you do the Bronco chase. No, you go.
So it happened on the 17th. So it happened 5 days. Is that right? 5 days after the murders. And he was supposed to be turning himself in. Because at that point did they give him 24 hours or something to turn himself in to be interviewed?
He'd run one other time, obviously, when they, you know, said he was meant to go in.
Yeah.
And he didn't go.
Yeah. But no,
he's rocked up and arrested him.
Oh, absolutely.
It's ridiculous.
Anyway, he had this time he had to turn himself in by a certain time, and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And then he called 911,
I believe, actually.
Or was it?
I think it was the guy, the AC guy.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
So the guy whose Bronco he was actually driving.
So the AC was driving the Bronco.
Yes. Right.
OJ's in the back.
That's right. And so they're driving around, and basically he's like, he's ranting and raving about, and he's talking. So this whole thing is recorded.
Yeah.
As in, you can listen to the transaction between, well, I'm guessing his mate OJ and then whoever they're talking to on 911.
Yeah.
They get a helicopter up in the air. It's broadcast live on TV.
Yeah. How old would you have been when this happened?
It was, what was it, 1994. So I was 9. I remember it.
You remember it? Yeah, I remember it. I don't remember like details of it kind of stuff, but I do, like, it sticks in my brain that it was happening. Like,
so I was living overseas. I was living in Mexico at the time.
Oh, yeah, you would have definitely.
So I feel like maybe like by proximity it was a bit closer, but I do remember it.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing it on TV. Maybe, I don't know whether we watched it live. I
don't know if I ever watched it.
I don't know.
I certainly remember it being spoken about and being like a thing.
So I was reading somewhere that Domino's Pizza had a bumper of a night that night because everyone was like literally glued to their TV to see what the outcome of this was going to be, because nobody knew. He was like running away. Like, what was he going to do?
People were actually going and putting signs up on the overpasses and like cheering him on. They were like making signs and then getting ahead of where the car was going. You have these signs up. It's insanity.
It's insane.
But they reckon 95 million people viewed that live. Which in that day and age, I mean, this is before social media. This is before all that, that like live stuff that we have these days.
Well, apparently it interrupted like one of the soap operas. Like it started one of the soap operas. And so, a lot of people were watching that, and then that's how it built so much so much traction. It was on every channel.
Oh my God.
Broadcast live. Like there was nothing else you could watch. But yeah, Domino's Pizza said it was better than the Super Bowl. No.
Especially if OJ was playing.
Yeah, exactly. And then, the broadcasting of the trial then was really interesting as well because, as I said before, it was broadcast daily, live, and it had viewerships that were just astronomical.
Well, I think it was one of the first ones that had ever been like put on TV live.
Right.
I feel like it was definitely set precedents in many reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
similarly on the day of the verdict, there was another bumper night for Domino's. Like everyone was just glued to their TV, just did not want to leave.
No. I mean, everyone other than those 12 people in that jury thought that he was going to be convicted.
Yeah. He had some very loyal supporters.
Oh God, yeah.
And communities of support.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the Black population, on the whole, supported him. And I think, as we were saying before, it had a lot to do with that police brutality case that had gone before.
It didn't help then that within the trial there was a cop who, he was done for perjury in the end, Mark Furman, because he he's got on the stand and said, and they asked him, have you ever used the N-word? And he's never in his life used it. And then they had video footage of him spouting it.
Like he literally walked into that. What an idiot.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that was one of those mistakes that the prosecution did. They shouldn't have put him on the stand.
Yeah.
They could have had any other cop sit up there and do what he did.
Yeah.
And unfortunately they used him and it was bad. I mean, they undenied about using him and then they went with him and they shouldn't have.
Well, I think he was confident he was.
But he was like part of this like group who were anti-females in the police force and stuff.
He was part of a lot of gross shit.
Yeah,
that wasn't the only thing. I'm just trying to think. There were other things that he was like, just yuck.
Yeah. So there's lots of mistakes made along the way. But yeah, the Bronco chase was unbelievable, and nothing has ever, I think, happened since as quite to that level. And the thing was, he kept saying all he wanted to do was go see his mum. And then he was like aiming for the grave. They were sort of like trying to infer that he was going to Nicole's grave to then commit suicide.
Well, yeah, that's what the inference was. But the problem was the problem with him saying that or whatever was the fact that they weren't actually even headed that way. No. It was sporadic the way they were going. It was chaos.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And what the point of that was then, I mean, he was trying to gain sympathy.
Yeah.
Which to me, it just made him look guilty as fuck.
Yeah.
Who runs like that if they didn't do it?
Yeah.
But with all that evidence, he did.
He did. I mean, he did it. There is no doubt in my mind.
So the defense were incredibly good at planting that seed of doubt in the jury's mind, that possibility of the cops planting evidence. And I mean, we have to discuss
the glove.
It doesn't fit. You must acquit.
All right, let's get into the glove. So the left-hand glove was found at Nicole's house. The right-hand glove was found on OJ's property outside Cato Kalin's guest house. They were a match beyond any doubt.
And there was a receipt found.
Yep. The shoes is the other thing we need to talk about.
So, there was a receipt found that Nicole had purchased those gloves for OJ for Christmas.
Yep.
So these gloves belonged to OJ. There was those exact gloves. There was not many of them. They weren't cheap gloves, that's for sure. So they were both found at both the scenes. Yep.
They know he'd worn them at some point because his DNA was inside the gloves. They found skin. They found I assume it was skin and whatever other DNA they might have found. I mean, they found his blood on them as well. They found blood,
and that blood matched not only OJ but also Ron Goldman and Nicole.
Yep.
So that was that. So but at the trial, it was actually Chris, I can't think of his surname now, the other prosecutor. Yeah, he was the one who actually pushed it and said that he wanted OJ to put those gloves on.
Yep.
Now, why would you need him to do that?
Another error.
I really just don't know why.
So many reasons you wouldn't do it. Oh. What's the first thing that happens when leather gets wet? It shrinks. It also goes really hard and weird. And also, like, why would you get somebody to put on a dried previously blood-soaked glove? Like, even that's odd to me.
Even like, but the fact of like, okay, let's say you put this glove on and it fitted like a glove. Even if that happened in the court case, that's not going to be this almighty moment of, he did it. Like, we already have he did it. The glove's got enough evidence around it without him having to put it on. That glove could have sat. I mean, I don't know of any other time when, there's been a T-shirt or a pair of pants or any other piece of clothing that someone's gone, well, in the courthouse, we'll make that person put that bit of clothing on to prove that it was theirs. Yeah. It was such a stupid move. Yeah. And as they say, in trial cases like this, you don't ask questions you don't know the answer to.
That's it.
I mean,
unless they knew that he tried the glove on previously, why would they do that? They also made him put on a latex glove first, so that makes his hands stickier.
Put like a glove, like a latex glove, and then try to put your hand in anything.
It's sticky. That's right. Also, I think the defense, knowing that it was coming up, told him not to take his rheumatoid arthritis medication, and so his fingers were stiff and swollen, like the inflammation would have been there as well.
Yeah. But also, when you look at the images of him with the gloves on and like, they don't fit, they go on. Like, they're on.
And he's also got his fingers
he does it so, like, really. Yeah. Look, he's so dramatic with it. He's as if he was like a good actor or something. And like, but his hands did go in. It wasn't like the gloves were sitting up on top of his fingers and not going down at all. Like, they fit. They fit. But when you think about, the fact that latex gloves, they've shrunk slightly because of being soaked in blood and then dried, and then his rheumatoid arthritis fingers, they fitted. It wasn't. I don't know. They fitted enough, but they really jumped on that and like pushed this whole idea.
And then they've got the slogan, which I think everyone knows. Yeah. If the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Johnny Cochran. He's a showman, and that's what he did. Yep. That's what, unfortunately, like, sealed the deal for the jury. I think they could hang onto that, and like, right, well, there we go.
Well, there you go. They must have planted the gloves because they're not his. The other thing is the shoe. These special.
Yes. So they were.
You write down what they are. Bruno Magli shoes in a size 12. One of not many that were made, 130 or 300 or something. I can't remember the exact number now, but very few were made. They were really, really expensive. And they showed him the shoes and he was like, I would never wear those ugly ass shoes. And then the prosecution produced 30, no fewer than 30 photos of him wearing those ugly ass shoes. Yep. And so, but that kind of just got then brushed over and kind of swept aside, didn't it? The jury obviously didn't take that
because there was a footprint found. Evidence. So the footprint was found at the scene. So and they like blatantly, obviously, he had a pair of those shoes, and not many other people did. But no, that one, again, more evidence that just really has been ignored by the jury. I just found that, they found a lot of that very interesting. How they couldn't find a guilty verdict with those sorts of that. The evidence was very open, close. Yeah. So during the trial, I don't know if you were aware. I think I'm pretty sure this came up in the docuseries actually. That whilst before the trial and everything, that OJ was in a holding cell, and next door was the Menendez brothers.
Oh yeah.
I love that little fact.
Oh, that's a case we're going to have to do.
Oh, exactly. That's what I thought too. It's a nice little crossover there. But they knew each other from a very long time ago. So the Menendez brothers, who murdered their father and the mother, their father was the CEO of Hertz. How how does this sort of
It's
stuff?
one of those like weird 6 degrees of separation, and the Hertz thing is pertinent because OJ worked with Hertz. So this was in one of the first ever sort of sponsorship arrangements where an athlete promoted a product outside of sport. And because I think Hertz surveyed their customers and they're like, oh, what's the most important thing to you? And they all said speed or speed of service or something like that. And so they got the speediest person they knew.
Yeah.
Can't catch a ball, but can run. And so OJ was the Hertz spokesperson. So yeah, it's a really interesting little crossover there. And the fact that they were then in cells next to one another, like it's mind blowing.
Imagine, like, you're in jail, like, you're on trial. Hey, because they knew each other.
Yeah.
They do it like he'd been to their house, like in barbecues, all these sorts of things, as part of the family. They'd thrown the ball in the backyard with, OJ Simpson, and the two boys were in the cell next. Oh, OJ.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, and apparently it was
our dad. Yeah, we killed him. Yeah.
Our dad who got you that job.
Yeah.
So Eric Menendez was actually apparently the person who introduced him to Johnny Cochran, though.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. And that's how the Dream Team began.
Wow.
So yeah, interesting little tidbit. But blows my mind the amount of like stuff in this case. It's just,
I mean, there's so much fiber evidence, like fibers that have been transferred from like something Ron was wearing, and then they found them, like evidence of those fibers in the Bronco. There's just so many things. There's I think thousands of exhibits in this case, and I would say 98% of them add up to the fact that old mate's guilty. So,
and I put in there though. So I've listened to a particular podcast named, it was called Real Crime Profile, and I really enjoyed this podcast.
Oh, I can't wait to listen to this.
Yeah, it's one. So they do look at different cases every week. And the podcast the main guy is a former FBI agent and criminal profiler who now works as a writer and producer on like Criminal Minds, I think it is, or one of those shows. So he was really interesting, and he had a very interesting take on a lot of this stuff. So they put forward a possible alternative theory to what happened here.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, no matter what, OJ is clearly at the scene.
Yep.
So they were very much, yes, that you cannot remove that. He was definitely there.
Can't dispute it. Yep.
But there is this possibility, and it's been thrown around for a long time, that another alternative theory is that it was his son, Jason.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the thought process of the way it has been mostly put forward is that it was Jason, not OJ, and OJ was just protecting his son.
Mm-hmm.
The theory they were putting forward was that it was the two of them. And when they put the evidence forward, there is evidence there for it.
Go on.
And unfortunately, the cops didn't do their job properly.
Okay.
Because in a lot of ways, I think they did get their blinkers on that this was OJ and didn't look around the possibility of there being two people at the scene. So there was footprints, another pair of footprints found. There was also blood underneath Nicole's nails, which was type B, and that's not OJ's. So there was defensive wounds, defensive evidence that someone else was at the scene. Now, Jason's blood was never tested.
Okay.
So you can't rule out that it possibly was his blood.
Okay.
So the thing with Jason is that there's been talk that the relationship between Jason and his stepmom, Nicole, was not good.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only imagine that, look, Nicole was so young, 18 when OJ met her, that actually she's closer in age to Jason than she is OJ. So there was a thought there that potentially a crush on her, or a bit of an obsession maybe with her.
Right.
He has a violent past, which, I mean, father like son maybe.
And also, I mean, he's experienced tragedy in his childhood too, and that informs, like, that kind of trauma can inform, this kind of behaviour in the future. So
Absolutely.
Go on.
Well, he'd been diagnosed with intermittent rage disorder.
Okay.
And oddly enough, so that's also known as Jekyll and Hyde disorder.
Yep. Okay.
So he'd not been off his meds that controlled that rage for 2 months at the time of the murder. He had previously had violent episodes with girlfriends and his boss where he had pulled knives on them.
Okay.
Knives were used as the weapon at the murder. He's a chef, carries knives, and on this night had his knives on him. So they were meant to be going to his restaurant.
Yes.
They didn't go there. So it was a party of 11 people. Now, in any restaurant that loses a party of 11 at the last minute, that's not good for business. I mean, this was likely thousands of dollars that they would have taken that night. And it was his family too. So therefore, it could have looked bad on him a bit that his family were meant to rock up and now they're not.
Do we know why they didn't go there?
No. So that's never been – this is the thing. This is where none of this was investigated at the time. These questions weren't asked. So it's quite possible, and I'm only – this possibility, that there was some sort of rift there between, we're not going to Jason's restaurant. We don't want to go to Jason's
restaurant. I don't think OJ didn't go out for dinner with them.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, he did.
He did.
Yeah, he did. I forgot that. He didn't go to the ice cream though.
No. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Keep going.
So because his party of 11 didn't rock up to his restaurant closed early that night. Everyone else clocked out of that restaurant with some sort of
time card or something. Yep.
He hand wrote a time that he left, which is later than the time that his girlfriend actually picked him up.
Okay.
So he left earlier than what was stated in that book.
Yep.
The girlfriend picked him up, took him home.
Mm-hmm.
He told the police he was with his girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
She was not. She dropped him off and left. So she can vouch for the fact that he was dropped off at home in time and had his knives on him. Where he lived was close enough for him to have gotten to Nicole's and back again in it was like a few hundred meters from his house, where her house was. It wasn't far away at all. Now, so the theory they were putting forward was that after them being – so OJ's gone to the restaurant with them as a Luna. Jason's at his restaurant, angry, pissed off. OJ's already pissed off and annoyed with Nicole and the fact that he's been rejected by his other girlfriend. Potentially, instead of going to the ice cream, he's gone and met up with Jason. And the two of them have riled each other up and gone, let's go tell that bitch what for,
Mm-hmm.
And then they've rocked up at Nicole's.
Okay.
I don't think that's...
I think that's plausible.
It's quite plausible. And the thing that gets me with it is if the cops had actually investigated that, right, even after the trial, because at the end of the day, this is an open case. No one has been convicted. Therefore, this is a cold case.
Yes.
There should have been more looked into as to, well, if it wasn't him, who is it? That if they had then looked at Jason, they could have potentially convicted him of potentially being involved, whether that be, that he was the murderer or accessory or whatever.
Yep.
They could have then potentially gotten OJ on an obstruction of justice.
Yep.
Or some other
Yep.
way they could have also got him for it too.
Yep.
Because obviously he can't get retried for the murder, double jeopardy. But there is definitely a way of getting him on this.
Yeah. Well, not anymore.
No.
He did.
He did.
But,
and don't you love though too? Like he died, was it April 10th?
Yes. Yep.
This year.
2024.
No one's really cared.
No. Because people know. Yay, the world's rid of another murderer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I haven't actually, I mean, I'd actually heard the theory that you just put forward, but not in any detail before, and I completely dismissed it. But the way that you've just explained that to me seems plausible. I still think so. The second set of footprints that were found at the scene, I thought they belonged to a police officer. No, they haven't found that.
The other thing is too, Ron Goldman's injuries, they looked at whether or not his injuries could have been when somebody was holding him, and there's a possibility that could have been someone holding him and his feet were up off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So either one person was holding him and someone was stabbing him.
Yeah.
Or that person would have had to have been strong enough, which you can't rule out because OJ was a very strong person.
Yeah. And Ron Goldman wasn't a big bloke.
He wasn't a big bloke, but he was very good. He was tough, and he strong himself.
Yeah.
So there's sort of this theory that he would OJ would have had to have been holding him and stabbing him around.
Yeah, so that's what I thought happened. He had him from behind and had sort of lifted him up.
Yes, but the thought of like potentially if there was
been another person,
made that far more easily able to have been done.
Yep, I can see that.
So the other one I did miss was the knitted cap.
Yes, yep.
So in that knitted cap was hair of a person and a dog. OJ didn't have a dog, but Jason did.
Okay.
Also, there was hair found, like men's hair found in the cap that was similar to OJ's, but was found to not be OJ's.
They also found OJ's hair in the cap, though.
No, they didn't. It was similar to OJ's hair. It was African American hair, but it was not OJ's.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Right.
And so that's why they also think, well, then could it have been Jason's?
Interesting.
Jason, there is photos of him wearing that hat, similar hat.
A similar hat. Yes, I did know that.
Yeah.
I thought they did find OJ's hair in that cap. Interesting. Maybe no, I'm possibly wrong. I was just reading over my notes then, and I actually haven't written it down.
The dog hair was the Akita, the one that was, whether it was from Nicole's dog.
Nicole's dog, yeah.
But Jason also did have a dog, so it could have been his dog. But yeah, I put it out there. That would be.
I think it's worth considering. And like, what are the
Ron Goldman's family? I think that should be investigated because
absolutely.
I mean, there's no reason why he couldn't be convicted now of that.
That's it. Should we just really quickly as well talk about the book that OJ wrote?
Yes,
just very quickly because so obviously OJ was acquitted in the criminal trial, but then a civil case was filed by Nicole's family and Ron's family, and I think they were awarded in the end $33 million.
Yeah, $33.5 million. Yep.
Of which not much has been any.
Yeah.
Well, they got the rights to the book.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
And published it.
Yeah.
So whatever. I'm sure there's not that much money in that necessarily.
No.
But so do you want to explain the book? It's an interesting one.
So yeah. So from what I can gather, OJ wrote the book.
Yep.
And then, because there was a fair bit of time in between from the trial and then the civil case that was put forward, so he wrote this book in that time.
Yep.
And I believe excerpts from the book was actually used in the civil case.
Yes.
Because obviously there's not, you don't need to have such a high bar set for the civil trial to be able to make claims of, that there was wrongful, what do you call it?
Death.
Wrongful death.
Yeah.
So he was found liable for wrongful death in the civil trial. And this book that he wrote was
he called it If I Did It.
Confessions of a Killer was the byline. And the book is, I mean, when you read I haven't read it, but I've read excerpts from it. Very much it's, I mean, if this wasn't the killer who's written this, I'd be shocked, because the way he's described things in the book of like the emotion of like being there, the angles of things, it's incredible. There's no way that he wrote that.
There's so much detail in there.
Why would you write that if you didn't kill your wife?
Why would you write that if you did? Like, what a psycho.
He's been acquitted, so they can't get him again.
Yeah, true.
So why not write it, I guess? I mean, he could walk around, going, yep, I did it, and you didn't think I did, so no. Which is literally what his book, I think, was doing.
Yeah.
But I love then, like, so obviously in the civil case, obviously there was found that he was $33.5 million were meant to go to Ron Goldman's family, and to get any of that out of him because he was pretty broke by that point.
Yeah, he didn't have much left.
No, so they were given the rights to his book to be able to take any earnings that he would have gained off of that.
Yeah,
and they published the book. And
well, they had to self-publish because none of the publishing houses would do it.
Are you serious?
I believe so.
God, I would have published it.
Yep.
No way, I can't believe that.
So. Yeah.
Jeez. So anyway, they published the book, but on the cover where the title of the book, they did leave the if in, but it's barely there.
Like it's minuscule. Google the front cover of the book. It's like a minute if I did it.
Oh, I love that. I mean, God, if that's the only thing you can get out of this in terms of, feeling from the family that they've got him, that's all you can get, isn't it? I mean, geez.
They're never going to get anything else, unfortunately.
Well, it's absolute bullshit because, I mean, to me, honestly, if he didn't do it, if that's what the conviction is saying, the cop should have been looking for someone else.
Yep. But they're not, because they know he did it.
They know he did it. But if there's a case here for Jason, why not? I honestly, I really feel like this should be looked at more
It
closely.
absolutely needs to be.
Especially now with the way technology has moved with DNA, I reckon there'd be more DNA evidence to be able to prove. I mean,
absolutely,
categorically that OJ was there. And I certainly am not saying that this was Jason did it and not OJ, like 100%.
Oh, OJ was there. As you said, regardless, he was there.
Yeah. But I think for the Goldmans particularly, I mean, that for some closure for them, that it should be looked at if Jason was part of this.
For Nicole's children.
I do wonder how do they cope with this fact?
I believe they were with him at the time of his death. I guess it's like Chris Dawson's children. And again, that's another case we're going to cover, the case of Lynette Dawson. But one of his children has stuck by him the entire time. I guess you can just never believe that your parent would do something like that. I don't know.
After the fact, really proved it more that that's the person he was.
Yeah, and that he had no empathy for what his children were going through, clearly, because he just made it that much worse for them.
Yeah.
They lived with Nicole's parents, Nicole's mum, I think, in the aftermath of this, but then he actually regained custody after his acquittal.
Which is just sickening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right.
There was just one other little tidbit that I wrote down, and this is just to show the spectacle of the whole thing. Because the trial was broadcast live on TV every day, Marsha Clark said that she had somebody come up to her at the end of the trial, and this just a member of the public, and they came up to her and said, "Oh, God, I just loved your show."
Oh, God.
It was
a soap opera.
It was an entertainment piece.
Oh, that's sickening. Because this is a mother, a sister, a daughter. It's Ron was a young man with a
sister and a dad who loved him so much.
Oh, that's so
and he had so many friends.
And I do think that's how this whole thing was treated. It was a celebrity show. It was. It was a show.
It was.
And it just should not have been. Honest to God, if I think this was tried today, that he would have been convicted.
For sure.
Not with that, thinking the knowledge we have of him as a person, all those sorts of things, but with the evidence there and the knowledge of people's knowledge of evidence, of DNA evidence now, I don't think you could acquit him. It's
no chance. No chance.
I mean, I'd like to think that there's been changes in the race and political issues that were brought forward, but I don't think there have been huge steps in that.
I think I agree. I think we're probably more sophisticated now and more versed in crime and proceedings and evidence and DNA. It's just more part of our sort of everyday vernacular. So maybe that would be more understood by a jury if he were tried today.
Yeah.
We'll never know.
No, we'll never know. Unless they look into Jason.
Well, we'll keep you posted if anything comes of it.
Maybe I don't see myself.
Yeah. Let's hop on over there and interview him.
Get some DNA. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that kind of brings us to an end of another Two Crime Besties episode. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And if you've lasted this long, well done.
So I've just seen the time. Oh, my God. Can't edit any of that out either.
We knew. Yeah, Meg is the editing aficionado in this pairing. We haven't even gotten in. There's so much we haven't even gotten into, but we may revisit this down the line. Who knows? But thank you, everybody, for listening, and we really, really look forward to having you with us in our next episode next week.
Absolutely. We've got to decide who we're going to look at next. All right.
Stay curious, Two Crime Besties.
Night.
Good night.